the YouTube button. Make sure it's happening. It's happening. We are live now. Always a good thing. So, here's the official beginning of the show. I don't know if you watched last week. I'm guessing you probably did not.
Correct.
Because it was all politics. And Bobby don't care about no politics.
True that.
So I feel, for those of you out there that did watch, I feel like I walked into the middle of the discussion on last week's show. I didn't really understand what my guests were talking about all that well until I played the episode back a couple of times. And then I got a better idea what was happening. We'll talk about that in a bit. I have the same problem. I don't know if you do. I have the same problem with a lot of movies. Especially
watch them once or twice.
Yeah, especially the Marvel Avengers movies. You know, it's like I don't understand what's going on until I see them. Fortunately, those are a lot more fun to play back 2 or 3 or 4 times than this. But I do like listening to myself talk, so that's okay. Here we go. From the neck-shaped shower in the middle of the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show. And we are up to episode 44. It's January 6th. Happy New Year, everybody. 2019. Mom and Mom are fighting? Am I reading that right? I guess I am. Mom and Mom are fighting? What could that possibly mean? I guess we'll find out, or we may never even talk about it. I don't know. We'll see.
There's a 50-50 chance that we'll even hit it.
Yeah, let's see. Where have I got you? I got you at number 6. That's Bobby McRaven, the Sport Karate Radio. What I should put down there is reliable podcaster. Because you're always
or
here.
Just has no hobbies.
Nothing left to do. Yeah, because it's a gorgeous day outside. I think this camera, look out the window a little bit. It's beautiful. Why are we sitting inside podcasting?
We're computer junkies.
I guess
nerds. We're nerds.
Yeah. Well, I did my outdoor stuff yesterday, which was also a beautiful.
What
day.
is your outdoor stuff?
Well, in this case, I just walked a couple miles to go feed our feral cats.
Oh,
it would also often be bicycling, but I decided to walk yesterday. Okay, the other guy involved here is me, Gary Pierce. I'm the Snowflake. We had 2 other people that were kind of lined up to do the show. 2 women. I'm not saying that women are unreliable. Although we're getting that appearance.
They're just not nerds.
One was not. Well, one is definitely a nerd. Julia McClung, who's been a host on the show before, but she's working on her house and it's not going well. So we just swapped some text, and she can't make it. And the other one, her name is Kelsey, and she's been someone I've been volunteering on stuff with quite a bit, and she's eager to be on the show, but she's not feeling well today. So. The other thing about those people is that Julia's last name is McClung. Kelsey's last name is McLean. Your last name is McRaven. I would be outnumbered by the mix on the show.
3-1.
I'm going to change my name to McPierce. But now I don't have to because we're 50-50. Okay, so let's check out the trouble that you got me into. The BBC update, the appeal. I've appealed that. I think you knew about that I appealed it. They denied the claim. They said that we had violated their copyright in episode 37, News You Don't Use. And so they took the episode down. I filed a dispute. They waited until the last possible minute. They had 30 days to respond to that. and then they rejected the dispute, and so I can file an appeal to that. I'm risking a strike, a copyright strike. It'll be my if I totally lose and get the copyright strike, I've decided to wear that as a badge of courage, a strike of honor. I'll put it on the website. I'll put it in a title and wear it with honor.
Lost to the BBC, proudly.
Yeah. In any case, they've got until the 18th, so another little over a week to respond to my appeal, and then we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's not like we're going before a judge. The only judging going on right now is the BBC. They decide whether I've got a case or not. If they decide I don't, and reject my appeal, I can go to court. I'll start a GoFundMe to be able to pay for it, because I sure won't be able to pay for it. Anyway, that's we're waiting. They'll probably wait till the very end. Got a bunch of stuff here. Things that are potentially we can talk about. The one I want to get to first is that the Women's March that we were talking about last week in Raleigh is on. They have decided to adjust the time a little bit, and we weren't 100% certain of even the date, although the confirmation came in as breaking news during the middle of the episode last week. So the Women's March in Raleigh will be on Saturday, July 26th. But it's not going to be at 10 o'clock in the morning like had been advertised for a while. It's going to be at 1 in the afternoon. What they're advertising now is gather around the Halifax Mall at about 12:30 on.
What is the Halifax Mall?
That's a public square in the middle of all the legislative buildings and stuff on the north side of downtown Raleigh. I can, for those that care about the video, I can bring that up on the map. It's right next to the legislative office buildings, and let's see, where am I? It's near the Krispy Kreme. There we go.
Go do some marching and eat some donuts.
Yeah. So there's for those of you who are looking at the picture from downtown, this is the Krispy Kreme, and there's the Halifax Mall. I'll make it bigger. It's just a big green space with legislative buildings and government buildings and stuff all around it. All of the marches and rallies and things that people do to get whatever their cause is going with the government, they do that in the Halifax Mall. You can rent that out. I think it's probably free because it's part of that First Amendment thing to the ability to gather and redress grievances to the government. So there might be a small charge for things. So that's where they're going to gather on Saturday the 26th. Get there about 12:30 or so. They're going to do some marching. We don't know exactly where. They were hoping to be able to march up Fayetteville Street from downtown, from the middle of downtown, which would be of several blocks. And
there's the natural science place right there.
Yeah. Yep. This building here, that's the actual legislative building. On one side is the House of Representatives. The other side is the Senate.
Okay. Don't waste your time at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences. If you decide to go, you can just walk around downtown and you'd be better off.
You find it boring?
It was extremely dull, and if I remember correctly, there was not a lot of stuff in there. There was a lot of plaques with reading and not a lot of material things in there.
Yeah, I don't like museums that make me study.
Yeah, no kidding. I want to go see stuff, not read stuff.
There's going to be something else going on there that weekend. It's part of the reason why the Women's March is going to be in the afternoon. It's an African-American cultural celebration. And I think it's in the Natural History Museum. So there'll be that going on, and that is partly why, because it starts in the morning, and that's partly why they decided to do the Women's March. Have you seen this 3D stuff on YouTube? YouTube on the Google Maps?
I've seen where you can put yourself on the road or on the sidewalk.
No, look, if you're looking at the video, this is
We're not looking at the video.
You're not. Are you looking at? Oh, we are not looking at the video. I guess yes, I want everyone to see that. I have to put it on the screen.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. This is cool. If you go to Google Maps on your computer, it doesn't work this way on a phone or on a tablet or something. You got to be on the computer. But I mean, I'm just like I'm flying around this stuff.
That's cool. And
you're seeing it in real 3D. They're not making up what the sides look like. I have no idea how they got these images. It's we're looking at the sides of the building. Now, what you were thinking of is this, what they call the street view.
Yeah.
Where you
drop your little person.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. Normally, when I zoom in and do something like that, it drops to street view.
Well, you got to hit that little person down
there.
Right.
There we go. No, it doesn't. You don't even need to. It just does it. So yeah, there's what you're used to for street view. But you pull back from that, and it's kind of a cartoon of what things look like. It's kind of like a drawing as opposed to a picture. But you can look around and from any direction, spin it around 360 degrees, look closer on the top. It is moderately well detailed. I mean, I'll come back. We're looking at the top of one of the buildings off the Halifax Mall, and you're seeing all the air conditioning stuff that's up on the roof. So I didn't know you could do that. I've probably been missing that for a couple of years.
Yeah, I didn't know you could do that either. It's
okay,
a generation of drones right there.
I don't feel so bad. Because there's the view that, straight on down the top view that I've been used to, I guess that we've all been used to. So anyway, we've learned something. So anyway, they'll be marching there. I'm volunteering with them, helping out. And it's in, I guess, about 2 weeks, January 26th.
Oh, you said July earlier.
Did I say July?
I'm pretty sure.
Don't get old.
Trying not to. Found my first white hair in my beard yesterday.
Damn. You're in your late 20s, right?
I just turned 26 last week.
Okay, you're in your mid-20s. You found a white hair?
Yeah. Scary. I got to start coloring my beard again.
If I grew a beard, it would have a lot of salt and pepper in it. I would like to point out that for those of you that are not looking at the video, even though there's not very much hair on my head, what there is still brown. And I am 69 years old.
Do you color it?
No.
No? I got to color my beard, otherwise it comes in red.
Red wouldn't be bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah. If this were all gray, I know people in their 50s whose hair is all gray. People's hair just disappear in their 40s and 50s too. And mine started disappearing sometime in my early 40s. But so I got the monk thing going with it. The circle around the top. There's a vestige of hair at the top that I like to fool myself into thinking there's still some hair on top of my head. The barbers enjoy that. So the Women's March is on. The thing about the title of the program that I stuck in there, the Mom and Mom Are Fighting, has to do with the Women's March. Let's see if you've caught any of this from whatever news sources you get, and maybe even from, it was your mom you were saying, or your aunt, I think, that gets into all this stuff.
Yeah, she watches a lot of Jordan Peterson.
Never heard of him.
And Joe Rogan, when he gets political and stuff, she kind of tunes into that.
I've heard of Joe Rogan.
She's got opinions on everything.
And not shy about expressing them.
No, not at all.
So you get the fun Thanksgiving dinner.
Well, we don't even do anything. It's just me and my aunt, my grandma here, so it's just kind of like another day.
Oh, okay. So your life is hell.
No. I've learned to take what she says, and a lot of it I don't care about, and she knows, and she continues. She talks about it anyway. I just, whatever. She listens to a lot of stuff that she's not interested in when I talk to, so it's a give and take.
That's like this show.
It's like life in general, right?
Yeah. So what I'm getting at here with the moms are fighting, is that, and the thing that when I was talking about from last week's show, the stuff that I didn't really understand as we were getting into it, when I was setting that show up and I was talking to Elizabeth, at one of the Women's March organizing meetings, and she was getting excited about doing the podcast, and she was talking to me about Wayne Goodwin, the Democratic Party chairman for Wake County, and how he's wasting money and not spending it where they need to. And in fact, the whole Democratic Party is not putting it into their campaigns that they should have, or they would have done better in the last election. What this is the progressive caucus, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party is at odds with the actual current management of the party, the center, more center-leaning management, and not at all reluctant to express their concern, which is a lot of what they were doing on the show. And I was not totally synced up with all of that as they were getting into it. So I was learning as we went. Maybe we'll get some folks from the more moderate side to come rebut some of those arguments. The other thing was that they all knew what they were talking about. They've been in this conversation for years. And so it's like when you're at a party and there's two or three people talking and you don't want to stand there mapping yourself into the wallpaper, so you try to join in, but they're already going on something and you don't have any idea what it is for a while. So that's where I was on last week's show. So that is not mom and mom are fighting. That's more like mom and dad are fighting. That's a common expression, I guess. Mom and dad are fighting. For kids, that's a sad thing. Mom and dad are fighting. But here for the Women's March, turns out mom and mom are fighting too. And that is, I had not understood this, had not heard anything about it until I started going to the organizational meetings. The Women's March was initiated in Washington, D.C. It was planned for the day after the Trump inauguration. And for a lot of progressive, a lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals, after Trump won his election, life was not fun for us. And the inauguration day was a particularly unfun day, although it was kind of fun to see that not a lot of people showed up for it. And then a bunch of women had been planning for a long time to have a march the next day, the day after the inauguration. And they did. And it drew a lot of people and was inspirational. And there were, for those who couldn't get to D.C., there were women's marches in cities all over the country, including one in Raleigh. So that was in 2017. And then they had another one last year, again in Washington and again in Raleigh and many, many other cities around the country. And then getting, planning for another one this year. And I actually went to the one last year in Raleigh. I didn't have a job. I didn't know anybody involved in it. I just wanted to go see what a big rally was. Have you ever been to a political rally of any kind? Any one of these things that I'm going to guess not, but
no, I have not.
Well, I also have not. except for one. I went to an ERA rally. You know what the ERA is? The Equal Rights Amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not what I was going to guess.
I went to one of those in Knoxville in 1989, I think, before I moved
so
around.
It's been a couple years.
Yeah. And I had just moved to town, and I saw on TV that there was going to be this rally, and I thought, okay, cool, I'll go. And, I've always been pretty liberal, except when I was a teenager, when I was far right-wing, under the spell of some friends, older friends that were way right-wing. I was an interesting guy in high school to listen to back then. So I went to this ERA rally. Equal Rights Amendment is something that women have been trying to get through as the newest amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and it's still alive. It hasn't hasn't gone away, but they haven't been successful yet. So I went to that rally, and I managed to get myself on TV, being an idiot.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody with a TV camera and stuck it in my face and said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I think that the people that are opposed to this amendment are just have a problem with sex. That they don't like the idea that there's sex." That wasn't exactly what the folks that put the rally together wanted to have on TV. Some dude. I wasn't an old dude at that point. I was like 38. But that's probably not what they really wanted to have on TV to represent the rally that they were having.
Right.
But
yeah.
there I was. Brand new company that I was working for. They saw it. They were not happy. I didn't last very long.
That was going to be my question.
I did not last very long at that company for that and probably many other reasons, and that's how I ended up here in Raleigh. That's how I got to Memphis. You're familiar with that reference? How I got to Memphis?
No.
Shall we chase a squirrel for a moment?
I don't know that one either.
When you chase a squirrel, you could just get distracted. It's a dog, You and your dog are walking down the street. The dog sees a squirrel. He's gone. He's off on a tangent.
Like, you ever seen the movie Finding Nemo?
Yes.
Mine.
Yeah. So, when we chase a squirrel here on the podcast, it means we stop talking about what we were talking about, start talking about something else, and maybe someday we'll get back to where we started. How I got to Memphis, I didn't know what that was. It was in the last episode of The Newsroom.
That was a great show.
Very political for someone like you to be watching.
Yeah, I didn't understand a lot of it, but I thought it was a great show.
Yeah. So do you remember the last episode?
No, it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Okay, the last episode, the old guy, the old guy that ran the thing, he died, had a heart attack and died.
Oh yeah.
That's right. And they're all gathered at his house for the wake, and the news anchor is consoling the kids, and guy's son is in the garage, standing next to his bass. Yeah,
I was going to say playing guitar or something, right?
Yeah,
they sit down and play together.
The news anchor is good at guitar. In fact, he says, the son says, "I understand you play," and the guy says, "I'm a news anchor on the side. I'm a musician. I do a little news anchoring on the side." And they play this song. That's how I got to Memphis. And
okay.
And the idea of the song is Memphis is a stand-in for wherever you are now. Just how you got to wherever you are now. So that's how I got to Memphis. So went through Knoxville for about 6 months, and then ended up in Raleigh. So I did that march. Well, it was just a rally. And then I did the one in Raleigh, the women's march. Last year, it wasn't a march. It was just a rally. March would have been fun, but for some reason they weren't able to put a march together. I saw what it was all about. There were a few thousand people there, mostly women, but not all. There was a stage set up, folks making speeches. I'm not real big on standing around in the cold listening to speeches for an hour or so. And as I understand it, most of the folks speaking will be speaking for 3 minutes or less at this rally part of this march.
Smart.
So, and it'll go on for less than an hour, I think, and be interspersed with some entertainment, some music, things like that. So if you go, you're not going to just be standing there listening to people yap for a while. And if you do, in theory, you'll be pretty interested in what they have to say, although any kind of political speechifying, I like discussions. I don't like speechifying.
Yeah.
It's something I ran into on the last episode. Everyone wanted to give their speech. And I'm not good enough to haul people back yet. When you watch the cable news shows and someone starts to launch into their speech, the hosts are pretty good at stopping that. No, you're not going to give your stump speech here. I'm going to stop you and we'll try to talk about something. Doesn't work. Still doesn't work very well, but right. I'd rather have a discussion. Okay. So that's last week, or last year in January, not July. So this year, January 26th, but the part about mom and mom are fighting over the course of this year, and I learned this for the very first time at the first organizational meeting. The reason this is on the 26th and the national march is on the 19th up in Washington. And a lot of the other marches around the country are also on the 19th, but many of them are also on the 26th. There's probably 100 or more around the country still. Well, part of it is the 19th is the Martin Luther King weekend. The Martin Luther King Day is the Monday, but there'll be events throughout the weekend. And some marches didn't want to step on that as an activity, which is part of the reason, although some people say, well, Martin Luther King would have been pretty happy to have the women march. I mean, would have lined right up with all of his political philosophies.
Yeah.
So the other part is that, and I don't know as much about this as I'd like, but some new people have taken over running the Washington version of the march. And
from when? What do you mean new people? From last year?
Yes, a couple of people started it. It started as a Facebook post and grew from there, leading into the first one. Well, the woman that started it is no longer running it. Some other people are running it, and one of them apparently has some ties to a guy named Louis Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam, which it's a primarily black-oriented group and Muslim religion connections, and has some not very nice things to say about Israel, which will get anyone Jewish kind of upset. So people said, wait a minute, the Women's March is now tied with the Nation of Islam, and that sort of makes it kind of anti-Semitic. And what's up with that? We don't like that very much. Can you clarify? And they haven't. The national people have not really said very much about that. They're still having their march. They haven't renounced a connection with the Nation of Islam. And so people around the country those who are concerned about it being anti-Semitic are saying, we don't want to be associated with that. You either renounce that connection, or at least explain yourself better, or bye, we're gone. Well, the way it works here in Raleigh is bye, we're gone. They are not connected with the National March. They don't want any connection with the National March. They would love for the National March people to get a better take on what they're doing. And that's also part of the reason why it's going to be on a different date, to separate that some. So now I'm seeing articles in newspapers. I'm seeing editorials talking about that, but I had no idea before. I don't think it's hit the cable news shows very much yet, at least not the ones that I've seen. I don't think it's hit the talk shows. It's just been in some articles in the paper. But I'm sure as we get closer to those days, to the 19th and the 26th, you'll hear more about that both nationally and locally. So the women that are running the local event very much want you to know that they are not endorsing anything being said by the national event in terms of that anti-Semitic stuff against Israel. They're not taking a position on Israel at all. This is a march for women. So there's the mom and mom are fighting. It's a stretch.
There you go.
It's a stretch. And I hope I don't make anybody too mad about that. Other things that the news is noticing about this is that some other marches, some of the women's marches are doing more than distancing themselves. They're just canceling. They're not happening. There are 3 that have been in the news for not happening. One in Chicago, one in New Orleans, and one in Eureka, California. I'm not even sure where Eureka, California is. Let me get my Google map back up here and see where that is. Do you remember the TV show Eureka?
I love that show.
Yeah.
It's Southern Cal.
Okay. Well, no, actually way northwest.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it's just south of the Oregon border. It's going to be a real small town. And quite a bit north of even San Francisco. Making people dizzy who are trying to watch this. Yeah, San Francisco's way down here, Sacramento, and then Eureka is way up there, and there's the Oregon border. So that's a pretty small town compared to Chicago or New Orleans. So the Chicago one is not a case of a march being canceled. It's they never were going to march this year. They did a march in October last year, March to the Polls, which was to get people to register and go vote. And they said, that's going to be our big effort. Putting on another march so quickly after that is too much work, too expensive, too much volunteer effort. So they knew for a long time that we weren't going to have one. But it's sort of being portrayed in the press as that their march is canceled. They had no opinion on the national march. The New Orleans one was very much saying, no, the national folks are out to lunch. We absolutely divorce ourselves from that and we're canceling our march. The Eureka, California was probably the most interesting of all. And by the way, it's back on. The people that were planning it decided to cancel it. Some other people that had not been in the committees putting it together said, we'll pick it up and we will still run it. The reason why the folks who were running it decided not to was in part, and not exclusively, but in part, because they were saying they were too white.
Yeah.
That it's a small community in Northern California. I think the percentage was like 75% white, and then African American and Latino and other ethnic groups splitting up the rest of the 25%. So they weren't getting a lot of participation from non-whites, and they were saying, well, we just think that this is not very representative of the groups that we are trying to do something for women, but for all women, and they weren't getting any other ethnicity except for white. So they decided not to do it. I think that they were not taking much of a stand on the national thing, But it was something else that the news had sort of jumped on. And again, I'm not seeing this on any of the TV cable shows or anything. It's all been newspapers so far, websites. But one of the, well, someone, I guess an event organizer is how she's described, told the local paper, well, we're going to jump in and we're going to do it anyway. It's a small town, so it's not going to be as big or as much work or as expensive as doing something here in Raleigh. But they're back on. So, and now here's my mea culpa. I made the show about this, about the women not getting along very much, and it's one march canceled because of that. One wasn't going to happen anyway. One canceled for something else, and it's back on. But that's all the news is getting. That's all the news is paying attention to, right, is these marches that are being canceled. Where meanwhile, dozens to hundreds around the country, some around the world, and the one in Washington are still on. There's going to be a couple of others in North Carolina, as well as the one here in Raleigh. This is the National Organization for Women's webpage, if you're looking. Except the fact that they're going to put a cookie on my computer and I'll eat it later. There's not going to be one in the Triad. They're going to take a bus to D.C. or maybe on the 19th they'll take a bus to D.C. Maybe some of them will come over to Raleigh. There's going to be one in Asheville. It's going to be on the 20th, so Sunday. And there's going to be one in Charlotte on the 26th, same day as Raleigh. And there's going to be one in Wilmington on the 26th, same day as Raleigh. So there's a few others right in North Carolina besides the Raleigh event. And, okay, that's it. That's it for the Women's March, unless you have something you want to say about that.
No, I don't want to say anything about that. I have local news.
Okay.
Are you a Duke fan?
I know where Duke is.
So that makes you a fan. All right.
Sure.
So Zion Williamson, 360 dunk last night against, I don't even remember who it was. I wasn't watching the game. But he got picked up on Sports Center, and this dude is insane. He's like 285 pounds, 18 years old. And he's like the size of like a linebacker in the NFL. And the kid's only 18, and this guy is just insane. Number 1 pick in the NBA draft coming up. Or number 2. Number 1 or number 2.
I remember you talking about this a while ago. It wasn't the 360 dunk. It was just a dunk from the dunk from the free throw line. Yeah.
That was before the season started. He was just practicing. But his dunk last night, man, this guy is insane.
Do I dare? I'm gonna get another takedown.
I don't think you will.
Who is
this one isn't the.
Who is Deadspin?
That's it's like a TMZ type thing, I think.
Okay, maybe less chance of them taking me down.
Yeah, I don't think they're the equivalent to.
Okay, so he is jumping off the floor, doing a 360-degree rotation as he is ascending to the basket, and then dunking.
Yeah, it was against Clemson. Look at that. Oh, my God.
Okay, and now in order to fight a takedown, we have to be transformative. We have to talk about that some. What's the deal? Is that hard to do?
Well, yeah, nobody does it. The only people that do it are in the NBA, and this kid's only 18 years old.
Now, what I'm looking at is he's like standing by the basket all by himself.
Yeah, he stole the ball. Clemson was dribbling it up the court, and he stole it, and then
so the reason
went on his way.
I'm sure he's practiced this before, and he was just waiting to be all alone under the basket to be able to show this off.
And it happens every game where he's by himself and he goes into the basket and he drives and he does something crazy. It happens multiple times every game that he plays.
Okay. And the other thing that you had talked about a while ago, dunk from, what do they call that? The top of the key from the free throw line.
Free throw line, yeah.
That's a long way from the basket to take a jump. Now you're doing that. You're running down the court full speed.
Right.
You hit the top of the free throw.
How far is it from the free throw line to the basket, do you think?
I don't know. 10 feet, maybe a little more. But you leap into the air at that point, dunk the ball in the basket, and then pretty much crash into the photographers that are behind the basket.
Yeah, right. 13 feet.
Okay. That was close.
Dude jumped 13 feet. Holy smokes.
Yeah. So here he's not doing that. He's just lifting himself off the floor. Yeah, the footage came from ESPN. We're going to get a takedown from ESPN. So that is a remarkable feat. And that's not the first time he did it, or was the one we're looking at the first time he did it?
Well, I'm sure it's not the first time he's ever done it, but it's the first time that we've seen it when he's been playing for Duke.
First time. And he is Duke. Okay,
yes.
So,
yep.
Go Duke.
Duke, man, they're just killing it this year. They kill it every year, but they're doing really good this year.
They call the basketball team the Blue Devils too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See? I know something.
There you go.
You all set for... Where are we in football now? Are we in the middle of the playoffs?
Okay. I'm watching the
how's Green Bay doing?
Falcons play right now. Don't ask me how the Packers are doing. I'm watching Baltimore and the Chargers right now. And then these are the wild cards. So then next week is the playoffs when they actually start eliminating people off of that.
Okay, Carolina's out.
Yes,
mathematically
roller coaster cam is no longer in.
Yeah. So who's gonna make it?
That is a very good question. This year there's so many teams that are so good. You don't know. I mean, the Saints can make a run. The Chiefs can make a run. The Chargers can make a run. There's just so many good teams out there. It's hard to say. Patriots, I mean, you can never put the Patriots out. No matter how bad they do, they end up coming to the playoffs every year, and they end up going to the Super Bowl. They're a dynasty.
Will it be fun?
Yeah. This season has been a lot more fun than years past.
So I should have been watching.
If you're going to watch football, this was the year to watch it for sure.
Scoring is up in football and basketball.
Yes, massively in football.
Which it makes the games more fun.
That was the goal that they were going for. That's what the NFL said. And the more scoring, the more fun. And some people like it, some people don't.
How did they change things to make more scoring possible?
The biggest change that they made in the offseason was the quarterback rule, where you can't drive the quarterback into the ground. You pretty much just push the quarterback down, and when he goes down, you can't touch him. So there's a lot of people hesitant at, especially the beginning of the season, like, how do you tackle a quarterback if you can't drive him into the ground?
So you're seeing fewer sacks.
I don't know if you are seeing fewer sacks. You were in the beginning of the season, but I mean, people are getting there now, and they're not trying to kill the quarterback, which is what the NFL was trying to prevent, because the quarterback is the face, and the quarterback is the person who scores the ball. And because of that, I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing so much scoring. But the NFL always puts in these rules in the off season from time to time that really change the game, and that was one of them this year.
Anything else that's making what is the scoring difference? Is it like one touchdown a game?
Well, it's hard to say on average. Like, we watched the Saints and the Chiefs go at it on Monday Night Football, and that was, what was it? It was like 54-52, something like that, it's ridiculous. Typically, I don't want to say anything wrong, but typically a score would be like 28-30, somewhere around in there, not 50, unless it was a really good team against a really bad team, like in Alabama going up against, Army, something like that in college.
54-52 is very even.
It's still a competitive game, but there's a lot more offense going on and less defense, as far as big plays go.
Yeah. So you got the quarterback thing. Is there anything else that can explain it?
There's a couple other ones. I can't remember off the top of my head. There was another big one at the beginning of the year that everybody was talking about, the catch rule. I don't remember what they changed about that, where you have to have possession of the ball before a body part touches the ground. I can't remember exactly what they changed, but that was a big controversy for the last 2 or 3 years for sure.
I remember some sports guy talking about something I sort of caught accidentally, that something that you're seeing a lot more of, athleticism more now than you'd seen before. And the example was one-handed catches.
Yeah, the Odell Beckham Jr. catch.
That one guy that's doing that, or are a lot of receivers?
That first did it. I mean, it's people don't get worse as time goes by in the NFL. Like, people become better as time goes by, right? And I mean, even if you look at basketball, players aren't getting worse. LeBron, I mean, if you look at Michael Jordan and LeBron's not worse than Michael Jordan. He's compared to him because they're on the same level. And, you know, some of these football players, they're not worse than previous years past. I don't know, players are more athletic. They're more durable. They're taking, you know, different hits that people were not getting hit with last year. Quarterbacks are able to do a lot more, knowing that they're not going to get their head knocked off. And, you know, I mean, people don't get worse with athleticism as time goes by in sports.
Well, yeah, because there's always new records being broken.
Yeah.
There are very few sports records that stand for decades. There's a few.
Right.
But, you know, Olympics are all about breaking records.
You can't take those records that people were all juiced up and cross-eyed with because they've been taking so much stuff. Can't take those. But, yeah, I mean, people break records all the time, which just proves that people are becoming better at the sport.
So speaking of being juiced up, I'll chase another squirrel here. This was a while ago, but I heard someone arguing that because physical enhanced drugs and stuff are so common, that we will get to the point where athletes who are prohibited from doing that stuff will be basically weaklings. That surrounding them, probably not everybody walking down the street, but surrounding them will be people who take performance enhancing substances.
Well, if you're competing at a professional level, they're going to catch you.
Right. So those will be the only people that can't. And so people that can, especially when these things get better and better, will take a guy like me, well, maybe not quite a guy like me, but yeah, let's say you and me, and we will be pumped up.
Yeah, you up.
Yeah, and we will be awesome physical specimens, whereas a guy in the NFL will be, yeah, he can't take that stuff. He can't compete with us because he's just got to do it all on his own.
Right.
Cyclist or Olympic athlete or football, baseball, basketball player. I don't know that we'll ever get to that point, but it was an interesting thing to contemplate.
Yeah. And I mean, you can tell when somebody's juiced up a little too much, especially like when you saw all those records being broken in baseball with all those home runs.
Yeah.
Like, something's not right here.
Yeah. The point that the guy I was listening to was making was, let's allow some performance enhancing chemistry in professional sports and just get it more regulated. So you're not.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest downfalls of doing that is, you're ruining your body.
I guess I don't remember him saying this, but I guess some of it would be, well, if you control the stuff better, you can find things that can enhance performance without killing you.
One of the things that boxers have been picked up for a couple of years, or even before a couple of years ago, I think, was some of the meat that they were eating from like third world countries. They had just like the slightest bit of something that triggered the am I chopping up?
You're back.
Okay.
A quick internet dropout.
The meat that they were eating had something in it that you couldn't have. It was a performance enhancing drug, but it was just something that they were feeding their animals in like Mexico or India or whatever, and they were getting flagged for that. And they finally figured it out, and they took it out of, okay, if you have this amount in your body, it's okay. It's probably because you had a steak somewhere. Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure that figuring out how to skate around those things has been still a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, people are still getting caught. People are still doing it. It hasn't gone away. But speaking of meat from third world countries.
Oh boy.
Here's our segue. I'm going to put a picture on the screen here for those that are watching. This is a restaurant in New Hampshire. I will spell it, and you attempt to say it. It's a Vietnamese restaurant. It's in the town of Keene, New Hampshire. And the name of the restaurant is spelled PHOKEENE, and then the word great.
Fucking great.
Yeah. They weren't told they had to go out of business, but they were told they had to take down their sign. I don't think they had to change the name of the restaurant, but that may happen at some point. It's kind of still in the middle of it. So
yeah, I can't see that turning into a chain.
Yep. I was in reading the article. It turns out that the name pho for some Vietnamese food, spelled PHO, is not pronounced pho. It's pronounced, if you pronounce it more Vietnamese like, it would be pho. And then if you put the Oriental lilt to it, the way their language is pronounced, it would be more like fa. So fucking great.
Clever.
Now, this is New Hampshire. Do I need to press the explicit button for this episode, because we haven't said anything bad so far? And I'm saying the name of a restaurant in New Hampshire. Fucking great. So you're getting the idea. The thing that struck me was this is New Hampshire. Live free or die.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so apparently this is the hill that the town council that doesn't want this sign out, that's the hill that they're going to die on. As they decided, perhaps we are not going to live free so much. Oh, they got T-shirts.
Gotta get one.
Yes. Called the Hanoi Bar. Fucking great. It's at 11 Central Square in Keene, New Hampshire. So I enjoy those.
If you're in the area, make sure you check it out.
I think they're going to. It's one of those First Amendment things. I had a couple of other First Amendment stories here from the title. I can't remember what this one was all about. Let me look at it. A conservative Supreme Court could reverse decades of First Amendment law. Decades. Still not sure what it's all about. American Legion. Oh, versus the American Humanist Association. I know what this is all about. There's a big cross. Looking to see if there's going to be a picture of it here anywhere. I don't see it any place. There's a big cross that's at an intersection in Maryland, like near Baltimore. And it was put up by a religious group and as a memorial to World War I veterans. And then for some reason, I don't have the details, given to the state. The state's maintaining it and spending a fair amount of money, $100,000 or more a year, to keep it maintained and clean and all that stuff. And so the Humanist Association, damn godless bastards, is saying that that violates the First Amendment's equal protection. You can't do this as a government. You can't maintain a religious symbol like that as a government because it violates the First Amendment. So there was something else about it. Something. Oh yeah, I remember. What they were getting at was the American Legion is the other side of that cart battle, the Humanist Association versus the American Legion, and some of the language that's being put before the Supreme Court. They haven't done their arguments yet, but they filed briefs and stuff, and with some of they're going to talk about is that it's okay for a government entity to endorse a religion as long as they don't coerce the population to follow that religion. But they can endorse it. So that's an interesting distinction. We'll see what the Supreme Court goes on that with our new Justice Kavanaugh. Interesting to see. That was a new argument to me. I don't know, where do you stand on churches and states? You don't care.
Yeah, I don't go to church, so I'm a very basic person outside of politics and church and religion.
I mean, if you go to a public event, a government sponsored public event, and they decide to, you've probably never been to one.
No, I was going to say that.
Were you to go to one and they lead it off with a prayer, would that bother you? Would you feel awkward?
It may not be for me, but I mean, if that's what everybody else is doing, then good for them.
Okay, well, that's interesting. It wouldn't make you feel awkward if they, everybody else bows their head and mumbles amens and things like that, and you're just standing there going, ah.
No, I mean, that's their thing. It's not my thing, but it's their thing, and I'm in their world, so I got to respect it.
Well, if you were in a church, you'd be in their world. But if you're in City Hall, maybe you're attending a city council meeting or something. That's your world. Yeah, I mean, that world belongs to you as much as anybody else. Yeah,
but I mean, if they want to do it, then more power to them. I'm not going to, but
okay.
I respect what they do. It's not for me, but what if they want to do it? I got no problem with it. I mean, of course, it's going to make me feel awkward, but I think it's not because of what they're doing. It's because it's like a first-time experience. First-time experiencers are always awkward.
Yeah.
Mostly, I should say.
When you were in school, did they do Pledge of Allegiance?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you were in a public school, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we did the Pledge of Allegiance.
Was it mandatory, or were you allowed to opt out?
We never had any of these problems where I'm from.
Nobody asked.
There was no segregation issues. There was no women's marches. There still isn't any of that stuff where I live. Like all of this stuff that you're saying is all a new world to me that I'm experiencing here. But yeah, I mean, everybody did the Pledge of Allegiance. There were no problems with it.
So where we're talking about where you came from, that was Eau Claire.
Yeah, Wisconsin. Yeah, northern Wisconsin.
Which I looked at the map and discovered, indeed, it is not on the Mississippi.
Yeah.
It's not too far from the Mississippi, but it's not right there. So, we didn't do Pledge of Allegiance when I was in school. And I don't do pledges. I don't do pledges for nobody. All that sounds just a little too totalitarian for me.
Okay.
And so I don't pledge myself to anybody's cause. Just on principle. I may believe in the cause. I may I'm happy to support it and all that stuff, but I'm not going to stand there and recite anything for you. Don't ask me to. I also will not do any of those. If you believe in this, copy and paste it on Facebooks. I won't do any of those either.
Yeah, those are always a bad idea.
All right, so you're more go along to get along.
Yeah, well,
Doesn't
it's
bother.
not so much that, it's just that's what they choose to do, and I respect it. You know, just like if I was religious and I were to bow my head and to do praying and stuff like that, I would hope people would respect the way that I did that too. I wouldn't expect him to do it, but just respect what I'm doing, and I respect what you're doing.
Yeah. And my position is, if you're in your church, that's fine. If you're in our city hall, that's not fine.
It's your opinion.
Right. Well, yeah, it is. And it's, based on the First Amendment, governments have been getting around that by saying, well, we will have non-denominational prayers and we will invite people from a variety of faiths in, and the non-believers like me, I'm not sure exactly where we fall on that, because I checked the none of the above box.
I think the issue is why are they doing that there? That's the issue. Not that they're doing it, but why are they doing it there?
Yeah.
Are they doing it there to prove a point, or are they doing it there because their religion requires them to pray at 4:32 in the afternoon, and that's where they happen to be?
No, it's definitely led by either clergy or someone in the organization at the beginning of their meeting, not because it just happens to be. It happens to cross a timeline of some kind. Mm-hmm. Why it's done is because, initially, most of America was very Christian and very religious, 100, 200 years ago.
Right.
And it was just kind of the natural thing to do. Even though the country was founded in large part because people had a beef with the Church of England, and they didn't want to be dictated to as the colonies in their religion. So that's kind of why they came here. But then they set up their own religions and said, thou shalt pray at the beginning of at the government meetings and things like that for hundreds, 100 years or more. Not much of an issue until us damn pinko secular humanists came around and said, the First Amendment says that the government shall make no law establishing religions, or the free exercise thereof. And that also, as some Supreme Court cases have shown, have at least decided, that it means you have the freedom to practice no religion, not just pick one from the list.
Yeah.
But if I go to a public meeting and they lead it off with a prayer, well, I'm being subjected to that. No one's requiring me to recite it. No one's requiring me to go along with it. But it was still too much of a government establishing a religion and preventing the free exercise thereof. Those things worked out much to the consternation of the more religious people, especially the more Christian religious people in the country. So when we say do it at church, do it at private events, just not things that are sponsored specifically by the shared government of us, and they get all defensive. They get mad. They say, well, that's a war on religion. It's not a war on religion. It's a religion's got its place. Well, no, God's over everything. No God over me. Your God is not over me. Don't ask me to participate. Don't ask me to sit silently by in a government function while you're doing it. That's coercive. Well, they are saying that in what's going to come up in the Supreme Court case is that coercive is not right, but endorsement is okay. We can put Bibles and religious paraphernalia on the walls of City Hall all we want, as long as we don't require you to participate in it. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how that works out. Something that definitely caught my eye. It was fucking great.
There you go. It's a great term.
Let's see, is there anything else here that I want to dig up? Yeah, this will be fun. Let's see if I can get taken down for this. Have you are you familiar with the new Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Saw a video on Snapchat of her dancing to war.
Yeah, there she is. So apparently, and I didn't catch this from any original sources, but in college she was in a video dancing, having a good time, and she is a democratic socialist. So conservatives will look at her and say she's going to turn America into Venezuela. It'll be the end of freedom, and everything is going to be nationalized. They're going to the wall with her politics. That's not her politics, but they'll exaggerate it to the maximum. And then they came up with this video came out of her just going nuts, dancing, having a great time in high school, I guess, high school or college. And they're saying, well, look, that's your congressperson. Look at her. What an idiot. And all the left-wing folks are saying, all I see is a young woman in college or high school having a really good time.
Yeah, good for her. Whatever, man. Jeez.
So, but that's the state of our Facebook politics these days. Anyway.
Yeah, there's a new video of her out there. That's the one that I saw, is the new one. She's dancing outside of her dancing outside of her new office.
Well, yeah, because this stuff came down the pike from the right wing, and she took it in an excellent spirit and just started dancing outside her congressional office. I think I saw that too, but it's not what I've got to look at right now. But yeah, cool. So
good for her.
Yeah, the kinds of things that she's promoting, they are pretty left wing. And some of them I fully endorse, and some of them I need some convincing on. Yeah, I think single-payer national health care would be a great idea. She's not trying to nationalize the oil companies. But somewhere down the line, we'll look at some more of these issues here. I'll drag you through them.
All right.
I'm saying, no, you won't. No, you won't. We're gonna talk about football. Okay. Let's see, was there anything else? Oh yeah, my driving beef of the week. You got some driving beefs?
Yeah, I got a lot of them.
Okay. See if you like this one. My driving beef of the week is people who turn on their turn signal after they've slowed down and are halfway through their turn.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me too much. You already know that they're there, like, whatever. It entertains you to put your blinker on when you're done with the fact of turning, and whatever.
Well, I could have gotten into a different lane. I could have got around them. I could have slowed down some more. I heard this on a radio station, I think it was out of Denver, on a motorcycle trip one year, a long time ago, back in the 80s. Somebody asked, why do you use a turn signal? I guess they were interviewing the man on the street kind of thing. Why do you use a turn signal? And the answer that came back was to tell people what I'm doing. I went through this with my wife, with Cindy. So you start with, well, why do you use a turn signal? To tell people what I'm doing. I think everybody would go along with it. They would say, yeah, that's exactly it. No. It's to tell people what you're going to do. It's pretty useless to tell people what you're doing. Yeah, they can see that you're turning.
Right.
They're stuck behind you. They could have moved over a lane and gotten around you if they'd known that that's what you're going to do, but all they saw was your brake lights come on. Too late to do anything about it. If you turn your turn signal on 10 seconds earlier, they could made some other plans. So it's not to tell people what you're doing; it's to tell people what you're going to do.
What you're planning on doing.
I think that actually made an impression on Cindy. She said, "Oh yeah," and she's a turn signal fan. She likes using her turn signal most of the time.
Yeah, it's there for a reason.
Apparently not. She's still. I have not gotten her. I've not weaned her from the idea that when you make a turn onto a 4-lane road, that you don't swing wide to the far lane. You're supposed to pull in tight. If it's a right turn, you pull into the right lane. If it's a left turn, you pull into the left lane. She will still do the wide swing to the far lane.
Yikes. Everybody
does that. I'm the only person in North Carolina that turns into the correct lane. Maybe you and me.
Yeah, you got to stay in the lane that you're in. If you're in the left lane, then you stay in the left lane. If you're in the right lane and you're turning right, you stay in the right lane.
My man.
It ain't rocket science.
You got any ink on your body?
Oh, it's hard to see.
Yeah, it looked more like a Band-Aid. Okay, so what is that?
That is the logo for the first school that I opened.
Okay, a dojo? They call it dojo?
Yeah, karate school.
Okay. And describe it for the audience. It's just
it's like the new Adidas. I think it's either Adidas or Nike. Their new little logo that they have on the back of their hoodies and stuff like that. They stole it from my body.
Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about here. Turns out that there is some ambiguity and some controversy about who owns the copyright to a tattoo. You designed that logo, right?
Yeah. This was done by me.
Okay. Who did the ink?
Some guy back home. I don't even.
You gave him.
His name was Josh. I went to a tattoo place. Like I didn't just get it in the bottom of a basement or anything.
Okay, but you gave him the design, and it's not an intricate tattoo. It's actually a big black.
It's very simple.
Three-cornered.
It looks like a fidget spinner, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Three-pointed little thing.
Yeah. So there's no question you owned the copyright to that because you designed it.
Yeah.
But people who will go get a tattoo of something that was designed by someone else, the ink is on their body, but who owns it? And who can make further use of it? Now, it's on your body. You can walk around showing it on your body. That's fine. Probably take pictures of it all you want and put them on Facebook or Instagram. That's probably also fine. Where it's becoming an issue, a controversy, is that a football player had a tattoo, and then he got put into a video game.
Yeah, this was a big issue in the NFL.
Yeah, and in the video game, then the person who designed the tattoo said, "No, that's my intellectual property. You can't put you can put him on TV, but you can't make a further use image of him and put him in a video game with my tattoo."
Well, and another thing on top of that is the NFL with the copyright stuff. They said if you have any trademarks or logos or anything on your body that's visible during games, then we're going to fine you every game that's visible.
I made a TV commercial with one of the Panthers players, and since this was a TV commercial I made, it must have been in the 90s. They've been around that long, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they must have been, although it was pretty early. And he was endorsing something, and he was in his uniform, and they had covered up all of the potential logos and liabilities except for, I think, an NFL one. And then I had to go blur that out in the video, which is hard to do because he was moving around. So it was, and the tracking technology for video wasn't what it is today, but it kind of looked.
The team was founded in 1993. I knew it was recent.
Okay, yeah. So I was working for that video company from 90 to 2001.
Okay.
So, yep. In the shoot they missed one logo that couldn't be associated with whatever he was promoting. I think it was a Burger King or something. So
Yeah.
had to
Have
go
a big
make
old
that,
tattoo of the king.
had to make that logo go away. I think it was NFL. I think it was like on his collar. I think it's part of the uniform, which is why no one really noticed it separately.
Yeah.
Okay, my non-driving beef of the week. There's a guy in Oregon who was fined for calling himself an engineer. What he was doing was he was disputing red light cameras, and part of that was a extensive mathematical analysis that he did about yellow lights and saying they did not last long enough in Oregon to account for people who were going to make a turn and were slowing down because they were going to make a left turn or a right turn, and the light turns yellow, and they're going slowly, not going slowly enough to not complete their turn, but they're getting caught on the red because the yellow light lasted a half a second too short. So that was his argument. So he came up with this extensive time study analysis of the yellow lights. And he had an engineering degree. The guy's name was Mats Jarlstrom. Yeah. He was from Norway or Sweden. He had an engineering degree from Sweden, but he was not a registered professional engineer in Oregon. And so he supplied this study to, I think, City Council in Eugene or something, and Beaverton, and described himself as an engineer.
Interesting.
And was on 60 Minutes and described himself as an engineer. $500 fine. You can't call yourself an engineer. Only registered professional engineers can call themselves engineers. And he sued. He won. Didn't win the right to call himself, to advertise himself as an engineer for professional work.
Right.
But to call himself one on TV, or to call himself one in something that he filed with the city, he can do that. So, and they gave him his money back. They gave him his $500 fine back. The reason that is a beef for me is that I'm a corporation. It is called Pierce 10 Inc. And for a while, I used that for my freelance work. And I called myself Audio Video Production and Engineering. And just thinking about what we typically call ourselves in the business. And here's a little Google search for the term audio video engineer. And if you're looking at the picture, it is all over the place. Most of the searches I'm getting back are job searches. Audio visual engineer jobs from Indeed.com. Audio visual engineering jobs from ZipRecruiter. Audio visual engineering jobs from Glassdoor. Salary for audio video engineers from Glassdoor. Don't know who Glassdoor is. How to become an audio video engineer from Zippa.com. Audio video engineer jobs from LinkedIn. So I called myself Pierce 10 audio video production and engineering. And every year I have to file a annual report with the Secretary of State. And I did that, was incorporated in 2004. And I did that for several years and everything was fine. And then one year, I filed the report and it got kicked back. It was rejected. The report to the Secretary of State has got just to review your name, your phone number, email address, that you're still in business. It's not a detailed report of any kind, and they collect $20. That's what it's really for.
Yeah, there you go.
And it got kicked back with no explanation. So I called, and a guy scratched his head for a while and finally said, I think I figured out what the problem is. You're calling yourself an engineer. You can't do that. Why not? Now, I don't have an engineering degree. My wife has got an engineering degree. She's got a double E from NC State. She can't call herself an engineer if she were to incorporate. Because to do that in North Carolina, you have to be a registered professional engineer. She could probably do that and then have the authorization to call herself an engineer. What that means is the registered professional engineering lobby got into the legislature and said, we want some exclusivity with this name. So they got it.
Weird.
But out there in the business, those of us who push these, let's see, these kind of buttons here. I'm looking at my audio mixer.
Yeah.
Those of us that push those kind of buttons for a living, we are known in the business as audio engineers. But you can't put that word in your title in your business in North Carolina and many other states. One guy in Oregon can. Probably cost him a lot more than $500 to win that suit.
Yeah, I don't know if that's worth going for.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Did you hear how I introduced the program?
I did. A little different.
Anything catch your attention?
Yeah, you said nothing about Mount Belzoni. You said something else that I don't know.
I didn't say Mount Belzoni.
Oh, you said neck shower.
Yeah, I should have said Mount Belzoni. Let me get that music going again here. From the neck-shaped shower in the studio above the bonus room. No, the studio in the bonus room above the garage. On the north side of Cary, at the foot of Mount Belzoni. I might have missed that part. This is the Triangle Talk Show. So you may be asking yourself, the neck-shaped shower? Are you asking yourself that?
I'm asking myself a lot of things.
Why are you still on this podcast? Primarily that part of that number one part on that list. So there's this thing out in the world that somebody decided to invent for locating things in the world, especially things that don't have addresses. There are parts of the world where addresses, street addresses, are just not a thing. Either there aren't that many streets, or you need something that's going to identify someplace that doesn't work out as a street address. So there is this thing called What 3 Words, and I will show what this looks like. Okay, they use cookies too. I got it. So What 3 Words will bring up a Google map, and it will divide it into little tiny squares of about 10 feet by 10 feet. Very granular. And assign 3 words to it. So we were talking about the Halifax Mall earlier, and if we look inside the Halifax Mall, again, it's divided up into little squares, 10 feet by 10 feet. It's actually 3 meters by 3 meters. So like 9 feet by 9 feet. And every one of those has 3 words. Mostly they don't work out to anything that would be like a sentence. So I was looking around the Halifax Mall. And if I wanted to tell you where to go on the Halifax Mall for the Women's March in a couple of weeks, I could give you the 3 words, here's sadly deaf. I looked real hard for that. The box next to it, can I get the box next to it? Why am I not seeing the box next to it? This is a demo fail. I'm kind of stuck with that one box, and I'm not sure why. But so this little box here in the middle of the Halifax Mall, the 3 words are "Here's," sadly, deaf. And if you're going to do the search in it, you would put a period between them. "Here's," period, "sadly," period, "deaf," period. I thought for some place that is essentially surrounded by the legislature, those were 3 very appropriate words. "Here's," sadly, "deaf."
That is kind of good, isn't it?
Yep. Most of the other words, you're just searching around in there for the 3 words, they don't come up as sentences. They don't come up as words that make any sense together at all. But the neck-shaped shower, that is basically where I'm sitting. Right? that would show up right in the middle of the bonus room above the garage. Right in the middle is a neck-shaped shower. So
nice.
Yep. So there we go. Should we wrap this up?
Yeah, I got to get going. I got my podcast starting in about an hour here.
All right. You do it solo, or do you have a guest host?
No, season 1 and 2. Yeah, season 1 and 2, I had 2 co-hosts, and then this season I got 1 co-host, and then we bring on special guests every episode too. So
what's coming up?
Evolution of tricking, longevity, and opportunities in sport karate. What strays people away from competition? Concussion protocol, all sorts of good stuff.
That is it. Sport Karate Radio.
Yep.
Sports or sport?
Not plural, singular.
Okay. Is that you up there?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, so there's the podcast.
I haven't looked at this in quite some time.
Your website.
Yeah.
Episode 1, is that all the way back to the very first episode?
No, this is season 2.
Sport Karate Radio. Sport Karate Radio. Growing the sport of sport karate. Tune in each week for episodes with special guests.
Who did that for you?
Sport Karate.
I hired a guy in Fiverr.
He charged you $5 to do that?
This is Sport Karate Radio.
I would have done it for $1.50.
Google Play Music, and as always on sportkarateradio.com. On today's episode, we got an action-packed, lots of info, lots of cool stuff. We're going to play a little trivia game here. And
Okay, everybody who's
always, I'm joined by
listening live, head over there now and catch Bobby doing his thing. It's not live anywhere, is it?
It is, yeah. That's why I had to get this massive computer that I got here. Is because we're going live video now.
Are you doing it now? Live video? I mean, will this episode be live video?
That we're doing right now.
The one you'll do today, later today.
Oh yeah. It'll be live.
Okay, but that's on YouTube, right?
I haven't figured out how to go to Facebook and YouTube, so I have decided today that we're going live on Facebook only.
Okay. So head to Sport Karate Radio on Facebook and listen to a program where Bobby will talk a lot more about things he
stuff
cares
that I know about.
things he cares about. And we will be done. So that is it for this episode of the Triangle Talk Show. I really appreciate your being here, even though you don't care about anything we're talking about.
Yeah,
It's always good to have somebody just, kind of there in the weeds.
Give and take, right?
Mom and Mom are fighting. Episode 44, January 6, 2019. I'm Gary Pierce, your resident snowflake, and I've got you at number 6, Bobby McRaven, sportkarateradio.com. Over.
And
Out.